Hey everyone, welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to get to work on what we are going to call our Stripe cart, okay? So this is the service, the singleton that we're going to create that is going to store the current items in our shopping cart, as well as handle some of the calculations for the subtotal, processing fees, adding and removing items from the cart, etc. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Stripe's pricing, okay? So there aren't any monthly fees or anything like that for using Stripe, at least in the simple case that we're doing. But how Stripe makes its money, if you go to pricing, is they take 2.9% plus a flat 30-cent fee for each successful card charge, okay? So if you make a charge of $10, then Stripe is going to take out of that 29 cents plus 30 cents or 59 cents total. So that's just something to keep in mind if you were pricing out your products and that 2.9% is, a big deal, then you would just probably pass along that percentage change to your customers. And so if you scroll down a little bit and have a little bit more information about the prices here. So for credit and debit cards, 2.9% plus 30 cents, like we already said. They do have in-person payments with Stripe Terminal, and that's a little bit less at 2.7% plus 5 cents per transaction. International cards, that does get bumped up a percent, so it would be 3.9%. If you're doing payment methods for large transactions and you want to use ACH, bank account transfers, that's significantly cheaper. It's 0.8%, and that's capped at a total of $5. So for instance, if you're making, say, an app that lets people pay their mortgages or some other big monthly payments, then you would definitely want to do ACH payments because that would really drop the processing fees for them. If you tried to do a large payment with a credit and debit card, that's going to be a big fee. And you can easily integrate ACH payments with a service called Plaid, okay? And you've almost certainly used Plaid as well if you've used something like Venmo. And that's also something that I'm thinking of implementing further in the separate e-commerce app course. All right, so now that we have payments out of the way, let's go ahead and create our Stripe cart, okay? So back into Xcode, I'm going to create a new file. Go ahead and get back to normal here. Here under Artable project, I'm going to create a new group for all of our Stripe stuff. Okay, so I'm going to just create a new group and call it Stripe. And under our Stripe folder, I'm going to create a new file. And we're going to call this, just needs to be a Swift file. I'm going to call this Stripe cart and say create. Very good. Now I'm going to say final class underscore Stripe cart. This is going to be a singleton. And then up above it, I'm going to say let Stripe cart equal underscore Stripe cart. All right, so again, this is our service that's going to keep track of our products that have been added to our shopping cart. So first thing we're going to need is a variable to hold those products. I'm going to say var cart items is equal to an array of product, and we'll initialize that to an empty array. And then let's go ahead and create some variables for our Stripe processing fees. So I'm going to say private let Stripe credit card cut equal 0.029. Okay, so this is Stripe's cut of the charge amount, which is 2.9% or 0.029. And then we have the, that should be private, flat fee in cents, which is 30, okay? So that just comes from this 2.9% plus 30 cents. Now, another thing that we need to talk about is in Stripe, all of the charges are made in the lowest unit of currency for whichever locale you're in. So since I'm in the US, the lowest unit is going to be in pennies. So if I'm making a $10 charge, what I pass to Stripe is actually 10 times 100 or 1,000 pennies. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, next up we have our shipping fees. So I'm gonna say var shipping fees, and we'll just initialize that to 0. All right, next we are going to need variables for the subtotal, the processing fees, the total, and we're gonna calculate these using computed properties. So I'm gonna say var subtotal of type int. Remember, everything's gonna be in pennies here. And we're gonna start out with var amount equal to 0. And what we're gonna do is loop through all of the items in our cart items array and add up all of the prices. So I'm gonna say for item in cart items, we're going to convert the price to pennies. So I'm gonna say let price pennies equal, so it's going to be the item price times 100 and converted to an integer. So I'm going to say int item dot price times 100. So now we have our price for this item in pennies, and then we're just going to add that to our amount variable right here. So add price pennies. And once that's finished looping through each of them, and at each point adding the price pennies, then we are going to return amount. And that will give us the subtotal of all of the items in our Stripe cart. All right, next up, let's take a look at our processing fees of our processing fees. This is also of type int. And how we're going to calculate the processing fees is we are going to take the subtotal, multiply that by the Stripe credit card cut, or 2.9%, and then add the flat fee to that. Okay, so I'm going to say let the subtotal equal double subtotal. And the reason that we need to convert it to a double first is because we're going to be multiplying it by this double right here. We wouldn't be able to multiply an integer by this 0.029. Then we're going to say let fees and subtotal equal. Then we're going to convert it back to an int. So int sub times the Stripe credit card cut. And then we add in the flat fee cents. And then we can return the fees and sub, and that will give us the total processing fees. However, if the subtotal is equal to 0, then we're just going to return a 0 right off the bat. So I'm going to say if subtotal is equal to 0, then we will return 0. There we go. And then we have our total. So I'm going to say var total of type int, which is a sum of the subtotal, processing fees, and shipping fees. So I'm going to say return subtotal plus processing fees plus the shipping fees. All right, so now we got most of our monetary calculations done. Now we need a method to add and remove items from our shopping cart. So I'm going to say func add item to cart, and we are simply going to pass into this function a item of type product, and we'll just append that item to our cart items array. So I'm going to say cart items dot append new element and item. And then we need a function to remove items. I'm going to say func remove item from cart. And again, we're going to pass in an item of type product. And how we're going to do that is we are going to find the index of the first corresponding product that matches and then remove it. So I'm going to say if let index equals cart items dot first index of, and it says here this returns the first index where the specified value appears in the collection. So I'm going to pass in item here, and then we're going to say cart items dot remove at index, and then just clean this up a little bit. And our final method that we're going to add to our Stripe cart is to clear out all of the items either when we log out or when we make the purchase and clear the cart. So I'm going to say func clear cart, and we're going to say cart items dot remove all. Save that, and that's about all we need to do with our Stripe cart. Just to recap, we are creating a singleton that contains our cart items, everything that we have added to our shopping cart, and does the calculations for our subtotal, processing fees, and total, and then has our two methods for adding and removing items from our cart and clearing the cart contents. All right, in the next lesson, we're going to make it so we can add items to our carts from the products view controller as well as the product details view controller, and see if we can get those displaying in the checkout VC. Hope you're excited for that. I'll see you in the next one.